Morning, everybody. Let's lead with the lead, as they say in journalism. If the early vote numbers stay the way they are, and that's a big if, we'll almost certainly know before Election Day who's going to win the election. We're going to talk a lot about that, the reasons why Democrats might be underperforming, the prospect that they'll recover. But again, make no mistake, if these numbers hold up in the states where we can understand even partially what the data is like, we'll know that Donald Trump's going to be president on Election Day. So we're going to talk about that, but I didn't want to bury that because it's extraordinarily important. And we got to track that day to day. That's more important than the polls right now. It's more important than almost anything because it's giving us insight into a variety of factors that are accounting for a Republican overperformance by various metrics in the early voting in the battleground states. Okay, we're going to get to that. We're also going to get to a new poll out of Georgia. We're going to get to how Democrats are reacting to Donald Trump going to McDonald's. And, well, of course, as always, take your questions. If you're here on the two-way platform, we'd love for you to be in the conversation. Raise your hand. If you've never talked before, today's the day. And if you're a Harris supporter, as Dan said, the chat's great, but come on in and talk to us about what's going on, how you're seeing things, how you're feeling. And of course, undecided voters, especially welcome. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome also. This platform is for peace, love, and understanding. Part of what we're doing here is giving you the latest information and analysis and reporting. But part of what we're doing is preparing America for the result, because whoever wins, it's going to require all of us continuing to talk to each other and dealing with the implications of whatever happens. So please stay with us and consider, as I urge you to do every day, how you will react as a leader in your community if your candidate loses. All right, Kamala Harris is not campaigning in public today. Maybe she'll add something, but as of now, she's doing two Comcast interviews. At 3:40, she's taping an interview with Hallie Jackson of NBC News. On nightly news, NBC has pledged to release the entire interview, or so they say. We'll see. And then she's doing, and so that airs at 6:30 tonight. And then at 4:30, she's taping an interview with Telemundo, which says that it will put out part of it also at 6:30 tonight on their flagship newscast. But the full interview will air as part of a half-hour primetime special tomorrow on Wednesday. That's it. That's all she's doing today, and probably preparing for those this morning, and probably also preparing for her CNN town hall tomorrow. Donald Trump, two events that we know of. One, a Latino roundtable with Latino leaders. They got the word Latino in there twice. Doing it from Doral at 11 a.m. It's streaming live, and you go to my Substack and see the link. Then tonight, 7 o'clock, back to North Carolina, where he spent most of yesterday. 7 o'clock, Greensboro, North Carolina rally. Okay, Tim Walz with Barack Obama in Madison at 2:30 Eastern, then a campaign event in Racine at 7:45. J.D. Vance delivers remarks in Peoria, Arizona. That is at 3 Eastern, and then a rally in Tucson at 6:30 Eastern. Doug Imhoff is in North Carolina. Joe Biden is with Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire. And you got to ask yourself why that is. We shall see. All right. Georgia poll today, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, a pretty respected poll. Their first or their final poll, they say, of the season, 102, please, shows a lead for Donald Trump, 47-43. Big undecided. You can see the trend line there. Harris shot up after replacing Joe Biden. You can see in their poll, she's been trending down. Trump trended down. Now he's trending up a little bit. Obviously, if Trump wins the state by 4 points, it's a huge landslide by today's standards, but that is just one poll, not dispositive by any means. Okay. Now, early vote. John Ralston is the David Broder of the Silver State. He's just been there forever. He's a great reporter, and he understands how to read the early vote. Let's put up what John Ralston wrote overnight about the early vote in his state. Okay. All right. A little hard to read, but we wanted you to see the chart here. It's pretty easy to explain. The Clark firewall, that's Clark County, where Las Vegas is, where the vast majority of the state's population is, has all but collapsed. The Democratic usually have a huge lead there, 4,500 votes. The rurals are overperforming their share of the electorate. And he says, you can read this, and it's linked in my Substack. It's too soon to call it a trend, but this was a huge day for Republicans. They are ahead now in Washoe County too. A few more days like this, though, and the Democratic bedwetting will reach epic proportions. As we said yesterday, don't overread the early vote. Okay, it can change. We don't know exactly who's casting these ballots, how they're voting, etc. But every analyst I've talked to in the last 24 hours, including people who speak publicly, say if this continues, Donald Trump can't lose because the Democrats can't possibly do well enough on election day. So, Sean, tell people how you view this data now. We've got one more day in the bank. Every state is either bad for Democrats or not good for Democrats. How are you reading it?
I mean, like I said, I've spent cycles on my heels trying to explain the cannibalization of election day voters. I had Seth Keshel on the show last night. You've had him on before. We went through the data. It is unbelievable. Like it's almost too good to be true on our side. So I don't want to get giddy or excited. But when someone like Ralston, and just out of context, I mean, Ralston has not been a friend to Republicans over the decades. It has to admit
But
something.
he's mostly an honest broker. He's not
That's
going to
your.
write.
I'll let. Okay, I just for
He's
what it's worth.
just
I have a
yeah.
different view, but I
Okay.
will say this: when my view, which is what you were asking, is when someone like Ralston has to admit something like this, that's a big deal. And so I feel very, very good about not just Nevada, but I think the folks in North Carolina that I talked to and the folks in Georgia are absolutely giddy.
Yeah. And Nevada, of course, I've said, all my sources have said that of the 7 states, that is Trump's worst. And yet this is what's happening in the early vote. Dan, before you say how you're hearing Democrats are feeling about this, what could be causing this? Besides the fact that Donald Trump went from saying only the devil votes early, what could be causing Democratic underperformance here?
Look, I mean, it's a great question, and no doubt in Wilmington they are frantically trying to figure that out. I think part of this is if you look at just not just in Nevada, but so far Democrats are underperforming in Philadelphia and Atlanta, and now we're seeing Las Vegas. And what have we been talking about on here now for months? Problems with Latinos, problems with Black men, problems with young voters. And so far, it appears that those problems have not been solved. As you said before, look, there are plenty of campaigns that have gotten off to slow starts, if not lost early voting, that have gone on to win. But when one of your calling cards, one of the things that we've been holding our hat on during these bumpy last few weeks is we have the superior ground game and the get out the vote operation, and Trump has outsourced his, and it's an unproven model. Things like this, give you a little bit of heartburn. And at the same time, Mark, as you said, Nevada is supposed to be, one of our best states. And so it appears that some of our base voters are not very energized right now.
So can I just, you asked Dan an interesting question, what's causing this? And I think there are three things that I think are causing it. One is there's been a cleanup of voter rolls. In many of these states, which I think has been extremely helpful. Number two, the registration efforts that happen pregame. It's almost like the preseason mattered. Getting folks registered, getting them excited, staying in touch with them mattered. And then three is, I think, the issues and the GOTV stuff on our side. The interesting thing is we've stripped roles in so many ways. Like for a while, Republicans talked for cycles about data and how Democrats had outsourced it and we had kept it internally, and it was a big mistake that they had outsourced it. And there was this big debate about what made sense. And the question now, flips on ground game, which is, did it make sense to allow some of these outside groups to do things that were traditionally done by the party in the campaign? We'll still see. But the funny thing is how many of the roles have kind of switched in the last couple cycles about which party was doing what and the critique that each side had of the other one.
Yeah. Again, we don't know what turnout's going to be like. This is a cycle coming out of the COVID cycle. Lots of things are shaking up. But I'll say again, two things. No one will tell you, no matter how partisan they are, no one will tell you that the early voting data is anything but scary for Democrats so far. And if on election day this trend continues, the election will be over on election day before we know who votes.
The one interesting thing that I'm going to be looking for in the next 14 days is, do Democrats flip the script and start to say, guys, we're behind. If you don't go out and do this, Donald Trump will win. I mean,
I think they will. I think they
yeah.
will. I think they'll do that by this weekend. I think you'll see the Obamas do
And
that.
that's a very interesting tactic because you go into scare mode when you know that you've got a problem. Like you don't start scaring your
Yeah.
voters
Yeah.
until you know that.
Well, and
Yeah.
I
Although
think the other problem,
consistently said they're the underdog, which will, be part of that. Dan, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, but I mean, I think the other, problem for the Democratic Party here is, and this goes to what we've talked about a little bit recently with those three Senate Democrats in the blue wall states, is does the party stick together? At what point do other candidates
Yeah.
and I keep saying this, do House Democrats break away and say you need to elect a House Democrats because we would be the firewall against a President Trump and a Senate Republican majority?
Yeah.
And, if you start seeing more and more of these bad numbers, I mean, look, they just rushed David Plouffe out to do a round of interviews to calm the nerves. They've been putting more and more kind of senior people out there to say, like, relax. We knew it would be close, but like, we have abortion and we have the ground game. And if
Yeah.
you start seeing more of this, it's, people start jumping ship.
Right. And of course, I'm sure, well, not I'm sure, you should all know that the three Democratic Senate candidates in the three blue wall states, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and Wisconsin, they're all now in danger of losing. And that's a source of extraordinary anxiety and upset within the Democratic Party. They want to save all three of those, and they can, but all three of those are in danger of losing now. And that's a big complication. All right. I want to talk about one other thing and then get to your questions. Donald Trump has offered up some of the darkest and most negative rhetoric in the history of American politics. Okay, over the years. Right now, he's having fun, and it shows. And the Democrats are talking about threats to democracy. Again, I'll say Donald Trump is plenty dark even now, but in his most prominent mode here, he's being upbeat. And the Madison Square Garden event on Sunday is going to be an upbeat event. Democrats are having trouble handling this, and it's just a rerun of 2016. So first, I want to put up, please, 104. This is a tweet from a Democratic operative in Pennsylvania, okay, where he says, it's fun that we're still pretending Trump's racism is populism when only Harris is proposing policies that actually broadly help people. I don't think I need to explain why I'm showing this. That is a very dark tweet in the sense of somebody who's being sarcastic and frustrated and saying that Trump populism is racism. There are aspects of Donald Trump's rhetoric that have been racially insensitive, racially tinged. Some you could call racist if you'd like. But his populism has broad appeal, including to a lot of Democrats in Pennsylvania. So that's one. Two, Democrats continue to talk about Donald Trump's and Arnold Palmer and Donald Trump's phony photo op in McDonald's. Okay. Here's what Nate Silver says, 103. Not sure what extent it's intentional, but last couple of weeks feels a little 2016-ish in that Trump is dominating news coverage with a bunch of stunts that aren't really the issues Harris wants to be closing on. Yes, Nate Silver, you are correct. And the question is, Dan, what can Kamala Harris do about that? Should they stop attacking Donald Trump's photo ops? What should they do?
No, I mean, look, the best defense is a good offense. Like you have to get out there and create your own content. I mean, you have to get out there and she's talking about why to vote for her or why Trump is scary. But
if you were, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you were in Wilmington, you could turn the clock back. Would you tell the party, yes, attacking the McDonald's photo op is a good use of a news cycle? Or would you say, ignore it, do something else? What would you do?
I would do both to some extent. Like, look, does the candidate and do your top surrogates want to be out there talking about McDonald's? No, but let's.
But they are. But they are,
no,
including not just the top surrogates, the vice president. Why attack a guy's photo op at McDonald's? I don't get it, Sean.
Look, but hold on a second, because
I want Dan to keep
Harris
talking.
did something like this. If Democrats, I mean, I know, cue up the chat here. If Kamala Harris shut a McDonald's down and had a starch shirt on and handed out a few French fries, Donald Trump would never let her hear the end of this about being a phony and all of this. It's part of his shtick, which is to always be the dominant alpha, punching down to belittle his opponent. It's good politics. Like, I'm not criticizing the tactic, but if you're a Democrat, like, you have to know that. And to your point, if you're whining about your opponent, you tend to be losing, right? I mean, just fact.
So-
Yes, that's my point, Sean.
God, I hate what I'm about to say because I feel like I don't want to help the other side. But if we remember when Kamala was at her best, it was at that debate. And I said at the time, she went 1, 2, 3, 4, your tie sucks. And he went, my tie's the greatest tie ever. And he took the bait. What Kamala has done in the last 24 hours has taken the bait. Donald Trump went to a McDonald's. He served, who cares, 10 French fries and a starched shirt. And everyone's like, he wasn't wearing a hairnet. I mean, for God's sake, you guys took the bait. He flipped the script. This was so beautiful. So I think the funny part about it is that every once in a while you need to analyze where you're doing well. She, on the debate stage, got him to take the bait. In the last 48, 72 hours, 96 hours, she's been taking the bait. The dynamic has switched. It's beautiful watching him do this. And I agree with everyone who keeps talking about 2016. He was happy and excited going into the final stretch, and that's where he is right now.
Is there any difference between Donald Trump telling his Arnold Palmer story and Barack Obama at the Democratic convention making a fun of the manhood size of Donald Trump? Is there any difference between those jokes in terms of how undignified they are or how crude or crass? Is there any difference?
I think that I sound like a broken record, but every once in a while I talk about people's narratives, right? And Barack Obama has always presented himself as more of a statesman. So sometimes when you judge somebody here and they do something here, you go, wow, that's undignified because it wasn't Obama. No one thinks that Trump, I said it yesterday, is walking out of St. Patrick's after going to confession.
Of course,
It's like, oh my God, I can't believe he swore.
But under your theory, the Obama thing should have been covered by the dominant media as a shocking breach of decorum. Instead, it was just laughed at
because they don't like
and
Trump.
The New York. Correct.
I mean,
okay.
The whole thing's ridiculous. It's utter. Yes. Look, he made a joke. It's offensive to some, but like, this is where Democrats just cannot see past, their nose of just like total outrage and disgust with the guy, and they just like, it's ridiculous. Like, get on your message.
Yeah,
like,
yes. Talk about the economy.
Just to put it,
where Barack Obama was best. Barack Obama was best when he was belittling Donald Trump with jokes where everybody was laughing at Trump. What did Trump hate? The White House Correspondents' Dinner, where Barack Obama owned Trump with humor. When did Kamala Harris do best? When she got out of the gate using humor about, I know guys like this. I know sex. Like, everyone was laughing, and Trump was like, gotta go punch her.
Yes, good analysis. I want to do one more thing, and then we're going to go to your questions. And I'm going to play this without comment, unless Dan and Sean want to comment. But in previewing our next 2 weeks together, this is not a program devoted to media criticism or discussions of the media. But in previewing our next 2 weeks together, get ready for the dominant media to side unambiguously, and if the polls and early votes stay the way they are, with increasing desperation with one candidate. Please roll the final element.
Election Day is just over 2 weeks away, and the fight for every single last undecided vote in battleground states is intensifying. Vice President Kamala Harris is targeting disaffected Republican voters by hitting the trail with Liz Cheney in the crucial blue wall states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Cheney was a powerful Republican congresswoman, and today she called Harris a responsible adult. As for former President Donald Trump, he was back in North Carolina again, pushing false claims about FEMA and immigrants. That's after he spent the weekend slinging a crude insult at Harris, engaging in lewd locker room talk about the late golfing legend Arnold Palmer, and staging a campaign stunt at a Pennsylvania McDonald's. I
wonder where Norah O'Donnell stands on the election. I mean, the only thing she left out is, and he's a really, really bad person. Let me just remind you.
Dan, do you want to comment on that?
Please.
Look, I mean, if you watch Fox News, right, they
Oh my
emphasize,
God.
but I mean, that's tough to watch and with a straight
I mean,
Yeah.
face.
yeah, if you know,
All right,
I
let's bring in our first member of
Hey,
our
by the way,
two-way
my
community.
prediction, Mark, by the way, just so I don't forget this, my prediction, it goes from media hating Trump to in the last 5 days, who interfered and helped Trump? Because we're going to
Yeah,
insert the blank,
yeah,
help
correct,
Trump win, because God forbid the American people actually voted.
correct. I hope no matter who you're voting for in the election, you had the same reaction to that video. All right, young lady, welcome in. Nice to have you here. Tell people who don't know you.
She's
Hold on,
muted.
you're muted again. I muted you.
It's your
Unmute.
first
There
time.
you go.
I'm
Yeah,
not
welcome
yet.
in.
In fact, I have time this morning because I'm turning 40 tomorrow.
Hey,
And
happy
Oh my
birthday.
goodness.
like 16. And so that's why I have to
Megan,
work
we're delighted to have you. We're delighted to have you here, Megan.
Sorry. I just want to say something that's been really bothering me, and I just got an email sort of like chastising me about it. Who is Liz Cheney for? Because her going on stage and basically coming out saying she's pro-choice now, which again is like one of 7 women who are still like intensely and proudly extremely pro-life. Who is this for? Because for me, all the arguments about the like Trump is a monster, Trump's a psycho. Like for me, there's a lot of things that are very alarming about Vice President Harris, and one of them is her and her running mate stance on abortion. And I just don't know who this is for. What if you're in this era of your campaign with 2 weeks left and you are trying to get undecided voters and you choose to do an interview with Maria Shriver, which I've had enough of all Kennedys in this election in particular, and Liz Cheney, who is this? What women are you talking to? You need women like me. You need normie moms. That's what you need. And these are not people that normie moms relate to. And then going on TV and saying that like abortion is fine now because Democrats such a threat. I don't understand who this is for other than progressives who want to feel good about themselves that we've got one Cheney Republican. Like I think she's just for progressives to be like, look, we're bipartisan. We got one Republican. And that's all I have to say.
I was stunned. I was stunned. It takes a lot to even surprise me. I was stunned at what Liz Cheney said about abortion yesterday. I was stunned.
I can't believe it. I
Yeah,
thought she was one
you
of the
can't call
like
yourself pro-life after that.
also like no one's pro-life. Melania is not. There's like JD Vance is hedging. Like, you know, I mean, Sean, you know, this is like a very big issue for most pro-life women. Like, it's like my number 1 or number 2 how I vote, especially after becoming a mom. And now I feel totally in no man's land with the party in general. And then like Liz Cheney going on TV and be like, hey, conservative pro-life moms, it's okay. The Vice President Harris and her running mate who signed a bill where you can have abortions up to 36 weeks. Like, it's fine. It's not fine. I'm not going to be gaslit into being told it's fine. I just don't know what their campaign is doing. I was watching it last night and I was just like, I'm so offended by all of this. Like, I'm just so offended that I'm going to like remove everything that's been important to me religiously, spiritually, and politically for 20 years or more, longer, like 30 years. And just like, I just don't understand who it's for. And I think that they're making really, really sublimely poor decisions. And I wish Democrats would just like interact with a normal conservative woman and not treat us like we're like in the Handmaid's Tale, because I think this is hurting them. And I'm so sorry, Dan. I think you're like such a nice, smart man. I'm not trying to like disrespect your party. And I really respect Democrats. I'm not like one of those people that's like, I can't. A bunch of my friends are Democrats. I think they're going to have nervous breakdowns on election day, but I just think Trump is winning and he's winning pretty easily. And I don't really understand how they could have screwed this up as badly as they have, other than thinking Liz Cheney is indicative of conservative women.
Well, those are two separate questions. How did Democrats screw this up and why are they losing? And I do think, and I'm probably not, you know, the best person as a white male to, you know, kind of talk about abortion here, but I do think there are just anecdotally in my own friend set, my own family, women who are generally speaking uncomfortable with the act of abortion, but also uncomfortable with some of these laws in certain states. And one of the things Democrats are saying is if Trump gets elected, he will attempt to ban abortion nationally. No exceptions. We can debate whether that's going to be true or not, but I think what they're attempting to do is to say, if you're uncomfortable with abortion, if you're a Catholic woman in the suburbs of Philadelphia or Milwaukee, like there is permission for you to be in the Democratic Party or to vote for Kamala Harris, I should say, because I, Liz Cheney, am like you. It may be awkward. It may be a bridge too far for some, but I think that is what they're trying to do. Just like they're trying to say, you know, Liz Cheney is proud conservative and defending democracy, and you can be with us on that issue too. Again, if Harris loses, all of this is going to get torn apart.
It's
Sean?
not,
Or,
Yeah,
sorry,
I'll just
no, go
add
ahead,
in.
Megan.
like Liz Cheney doing it was so shocking to me because she was actually someone for a long time that I thought was very strong on this issue. And to me, like that, and I've said this line many times, like Trump didn't break my brain, so I don't know what everyone else's excuse is. And I just don't understand how, if you truly believe, which I do, spiritually and politically, that like we have to fight for the rights of the unborn. That's a big thing to be like, don't worry about it. That I'm just confused by it. Like if I said that, I think Sean would like, you're my neighbor. I think you come over to my house and be like, have you lost your damn mind, Megan? Like, I don't know. I'm totally taking up your meeting, but it was really angered me. And I got an email this morning from like that her area trying to sort of like rationalize it. And for me, it's just I just don't understand.
Look, I'll tell you where I think the Liz Cheney stuff was interesting, which was when she and Kamala Harris tried to defend our involvement overseas. Because like you go back to the Charlemagne the God interview, where a Black woman calls in and is like, why are we sending money overseas when we have problems here at home? We know from all the evidence this hits a real nerve with progressives and with certain segments that we're struggling with. And there were Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris like proudly standing there and being like, we are going to defend this. That's where my jaw dropped a little bit 2 weeks out.
You'll see that in Trump videos for sure. Sean, quickly.
Yeah, I'll just say, look, I'm with Megan on this. I'm proudly pro-life, and I wish more people in our party stood on deeper principle on this. I think for Liz Cheney to get up there and say, like she should have had her moment and said, the one area I disagree with the vice president on is this, and I hope that our relationship allows me to have a conversation with her about how we can continue to make abortion and stand more, rare and stand up for the rights of the unborn. I would have appreciated that, and it would have been more genuine as someone. But to suddenly throw out all of her convictions and say, suddenly, here's your pass to go give up on defending the rights of the unborn was weak and pathetic. And I actually liked it, Megan, because to me, it just showed threadbare how it's more about anti-Trump than standing up for any values that you ever said that you espoused, Liz Cheney. So I almost feel like she exposed herself.
Megan, thanks for coming. Come back tomorrow for your birthday. We'll all sing.
And I know I had a morning off after dropping my kids off. So thank you so much.
Okay. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you, Megan. All right. Sean, come on in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please, after you unmute.
Yeah, so I'm a 24-year-old voter in Northern Virginia, and this year I'm going to be voting for Trump. Kind of hesitantly, but
tell us why.
I actually want to take this moment and kind of give everyone like a moment to step back, because we like to be in the weeds with U.S. politics, and like this election is going to be a monumental election. But if you look around the world, the U.S. has historically been just fine, right? We can produce our own energy, we can produce our own food. Not a lot of other countries can say that. And so even though this election is important, I want to just tell everyone, if the other candidate wins, the candidate you don't prefer, the US is going to be fine. We're going to be okay. Historically, we've just been we have two oceans. We're going to be safe, right? We have everything we need. If your candidate doesn't win, it's not the end of the world, right?
Sean, thank you for saying that. We agree. Thank you for that.
And the other thing I want to do is I think it would be good for a segment where you guys just flip a coin and say like your candidate is head, your preferred candidate is heads, and your unpreferred candidate is tails. And just do that every day until the election and just see what 50-50 really is, right? Because like people like to think the polls say it's a 50-50 election, but they subconsciously think, oh, my preferred candidate will definitely win. And when they don't win, it feels like it's oh, something's rigged or something went wrong. Whereas if it's really a 50-50 election, it's just that's how it goes, right? That's just probability. So if you just do this long enough, you can kind of see what 50-50 really is. Yeah.
Sean, you're wise beyond your years. We appreciate you saying all that. Did you want to ask a question, or you just wanted to share all that?
I just wanted to share that people should just step back and not be like you want to be invested in an election, obviously, but you don't want to be so invested that it just completely consumes your every thought and kind of just takes over your life to an unhealthy degree, right? So
Right. All
just
right.
my 2 cents.
Thank you for joining. We hope you come back regularly. Grateful to you. Thank you. We're going to warn our affiliates. We're going to run a little bit over, but not too far over. I promise you, not too far over, because we're going to end today at one point. All right, Chris, come on in.
Mark, can I just, I want to weigh in on what Sean said, because
Yeah,
I
please.
respect, I obviously I respect his opinion. I'm glad he's voting, especially here in Northern Virginia. I will just say this. I will 100% respect the outcome of this election, and I've always respected the office of the presidency. I believe that we have elections, they have consequences for every office, mayor, city council, up to president. And so I just want to be clear on that. But I respectfully don't necessarily share the opinion. I am very concerned about the role of China in this world, the threat that they pose, the idea that the leader of China has said that by 2027 we will go to war. If you don't believe that there are consequences in an election, then I respectfully ask you to really look at what's happening in this country in terms of the existential threats that we face from abroad, and then in terms of our debt crisis and a bunch of other policies. So I get it, and I think we should respect the outcome of the election, and we should treat the people that we disagree with respect, but to not believe that this is going to be a consequential election, I think undermines the importance of it. So there's my 2 cents.
Well,
Yeah.
but I mean, look, Democrats obviously feel very passionately about issues too, but I mean, I think he's right. At the end of the day, America, will be okay regardless of who wins. And yeah, okay,
All right, Chris, welcome in.
Is shaking his head. I yield the
Chris,
floor.
we know you're for Harris. Remind people where you're located, and then floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm in Bosnia Herzegovina in southeastern Europe. I've lived here for 28 years. I am from New York. I support Harris, Biden, Clinton. I came here 28 years ago and thought I'd be here for 3 months, but I had the experience of pulling back the plastic and seeing a mass grave. And it's just like what you saw in Auschwitz. I've seen body parts. I've been in a room with 20 older women, and every single one of them was raped. And some of them were over 80 years old. So I've seen the consequence of when America does not lead. And so I'm not able to sleep, and I can barely work. It's very personal. And I do believe that if Donald Trump is elected, within 1 to 3 years, I will be killed, or many of my friends will be killed. Thousands of people who I work with and care about will die. And Mark, you'll like hearing this. On election night, I'll watch the election with my dear friend who's a Trump supporter. And if Trump wins, I'll drive to a clothing store where I met a Trump supporter about a year ago. And he was surprised that a liberal Democrat like me and him could have so much common ground. And I will shake his hand and I will congratulate him, even as I prepare to come back here and honor our forefathers who died on the beaches of Normandy and said never again. And even if Donald Trump brings us back to 1939 and says, I don't care, well, I do. And I believe in a country, that stands for what our forefathers gave their lives for on the beaches of Normandy.
Chris, I appreciate you sharing all that, and obviously everybody watching can see how emotional you are about it and understand why. Can you just clarify, when you say if Donald Trump wins, people will be killed? How will that happen?
Yeah, it's actually the first time I came on the show, I had a sense of humor and I liked giving Sean shit in the way we used to in the 90s. I don't have derangement syndrome. It's all very, very, very predictable. And actually being on the show, please, Mark, do not take this and put it on the internet individually, because what I'm sharing could get me killed even sooner, because it shows my allegiances. But Serbia has overwhelming military superiority over its immediate neighbors, target countries. The only reason we don't have war here is that NATO has overwhelming military superiority, and there's very, very consistent and clear messaging. Whereas Trump has already said he will not defend Montenegro, and it has nothing to do
Chris, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I'm so sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you, but we're on a tight deadline today.
I get
So
it.
if you want to explain the point in one sentence,
Well,
please do.
Oh, in one sentence. Well, despite differing opinions here, Trump does not absolutely support NATO. And because of his lack of his questionable support, aggressors will act upon their territorial ambitions, and a lot of people will die.
Okay,
And
Chris,
that's
thank you.
really
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off, but we're on a tight deadline today. I appreciate what you said, and we won't cut your video separately at your request. I will say, and then turn over to Sean and Dan for brief comments. That kind of emotion is understandable on both sides, but we have to be ready for whatever outcome there is to continue to talk and not condemn half of America with accusations like people will die. If you make them in good faith, great. But be careful about what you say. Sean.
Well, I would just, I'm sorry. I mean, I appreciate him sharing his personal views on the platform. I think to your point, this is, you know, we all have the opportunity to be and express ourselves and our concerns about the election. I obviously vehemently disagree with Trump's stance on NATO. I've made my position clear on that, and I wish him the best. And I hope the U.S. government always protects the lives of Americans, whether here or abroad.
Dan.
I mean, this is an issue that I hear frequently, and I think how the parties view the role of America overseas is going through a lot of change right now, and it has been for the last few years. And passions run high, as reflected by this gentleman. And there are a lot of people who feel passionately that, you know, we shouldn't be involved in various stuff. And the voters are going to speak pretty soon.
Okay. Before our 30-second benediction from the Reverend John Podhoretz, I will tell you, as always, this program will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll be back at 6 p.m. for Two-Way Tonight. That happens all week. However, some specials to tell you about. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, Lauren Leader, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, with a program about Michigan that she'll have the Michigan Secretary of State, who's been tangling with Elon Musk, and some other guests. So deep dive on what's going on with the vote in Michigan tomorrow at 5 p.m., followed by a regular edition of Two-Way Tonight. Then Thursday, my two specials. First, 11 Eastern, you can register now to be part of this. Karl Rove, Electoral College, Chalk Talk. We're going to run through all 7 states, what's going on there. Maybe we'll talk about New Mexico because Karl loves New Mexico. But 7-state deep dive, demography, history, geography. Lots of time for Karl to run through all 7 maps, and then lots of time for your questions. Thursday at 11. You can register now. And then Thursday at the regular time, but a special 2-hour episode. It's all about Pennsylvania. 6 to 8. You can register for this one now. An exclusive poll done by Two-Way and Wick Insights. Be able to see the poll for the first time. We're going to have some Democrats and Republicans from Pennsylvania, analysis, some undecided voters. We're going to do 2 hours just talking about what's going on in Pennsylvania. So you can look forward to that. All right. With that, oh, one more thing. If you're an undecided voter in Pennsylvania and you haven't signed up yet, please do. Send us an email to it'sallaboutpa@gmail.com. Tell us you're an undecided voter, and we will be in touch. All right. The Reverend Right John Podhoretz. John, come on in. You literally have only about 30 seconds because we got to go. So 30 seconds. Floor is yours. Unmute one more time. Go.
Siena poll today of New York seems to have straightened out confusion about the Jewish vote, by which I mean the last Siena poll had Trump winning, Jews in New York 54-46. This poll has Harris winning Jews 56-39. Now, why am I bringing this up to you guys? because I think we can harmonize the Jewish vote in New York with the Jewish vote in Pennsylvania. If the Jewish vote in Pennsylvania is 40% for Trump, Trump will win Pennsylvania. So this emendation, which makes total sense, the other polls seem bonkers, and we are talking about a very small sample size, so the margin of error is huge. It could be that this is not accurate, but the fact that it shifted 19, 20 points in one direction or whatever, it does seem to suggest at least a kind of coming to reality. And just the math is 270,000 Jewish voters in Pennsylvania. They went 28, 29% for Trump. If they go 39% for Trump, that's a 40,000 vote shift. And he'll win Pennsylvania. That's my benediction. The only time I've ever been called a reverend in my entire life is by you.
Oddest benediction I've ever heard. John, thank you for joining. Wish we had more time for you, and lots of hands up. We apologize. We got to end today a little bit earlier than we have been, but we'll be back tomorrow 9 a.m. and I'll be back tonight at 6. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.